guys.
Back in 1953, John Byrne passed away at the age of 40. And John Byrne was my granddad. And I learned from relatives just as much information about him as I could, you know. And the common denominator of information that came back was that he was a very fun-loving man that loved his wife, my grandmother, very, very dearly. And I often ask my dad about him as well. My dad would ask his mum about her, but it was a very, very touching subject. She would just cry any time he brought up his name, you know, even 20 and 30 years later on. I suppose my granddad was brought up in the Wicklow Mountains in a place called Ballybrew, and it's a beautiful part of the world. And he had his own granite quarry, him and his dad, and they used to cut all the granite and make the granite walls and all up in the Wicklow Mountains. And he helped with the plantation of a lot of the pine forests up there. So I suppose any time I purposely do take a trip up the mountains there very often when I'm home, and it's just, I suppose, brings me close to that side of the family and my grandfather, you know, that way. My nanny grew up in Bray, County Wicklow, where I was brought up, and it's a seaside town. And I always think my nanny is the girl from the shore, and my grandfather is the boy from the hill. He used to ride his bicycle down from the Wicklow Mountains every evening to meet her in Bray and walk along the prom on the Bray seafront there. And if we're to fast forward nearly 65 years, the house where I was brought up in was my grandfather and my grandmother's house. And my dad obviously was brought up there. Out the back of the house there's an old shed that's the same amount of years. It's that old, you know, it's very, very old. It's about 70 years old. And in that shed, I always remember as a kid, and still stands today, was his old bicycle wheel, my grandfather's bicycle wheel from his bike. It's still hanging up in the shed, never touched. And beside that bicycle wheel was an old tweed coat that's still there today too. And even as kids, we never touched the coat or the bicycle wheel, because, you know, as kids you're usually in and out of everything, you know. But we never touched it. Maybe it was just a subconscious thing of respect for the things there, you know. But a couple of years back, my dad one Saturday morning walked into the shed, and I suppose he'd often just look at the coat, you know, and think about his dad. My dad was only 3 when his dad died, you know. You can see from the picture here, my dad's sitting on my grandfather's knee there, and that's my Aunt Mary beside it, my grandmother in the back there. But my dad went into the shed anyway, and he was just looking at the coat hanging on the wall. And he just decided to touch the coat. He'd never really touched it before, and he opened up the coat. It's kind of hanging sideways, and he just opened it up like this, and there's a gold type of seam inside it with a breast pocket. And when he looked at the breast pocket, there was a piece of paper that was just sticking out of the breast pocket. And of course he was very, very intrigued as of what this was going to be, what information, because, you know, I suppose anything at all would bring him closer to his dad, you know, and finding some information like this would be great, you know. So he took the piece of paper out, and lo and behold, it was a full written letter. And in that letter, it was a love letter written from my granddad to my grandmother. And I guess the bittersweet thing about it was that my grandmother never received it, because my grandmother died in the late 80s, and she had a wonderful life, and she was a fun-loving person, you know, but she never received the letter from him, you know. And my dad told me about it, but I didn't ask him exactly what was in the letter. I just wouldn't. I think it's very, very kind of personal, you know. But it really, really touched him, and I suppose touched us all really, and he became a bit closer to his dad and got a sense of what the type of character his dad was. I told Ryan about this story, and the two of us agreed that, you know, the Old Tweed Coat, there's a very sentimental story behind this. You know, it could be a lovely song that we could dedicate to them.
Totally. Like, I mean, I know you've heard it for the first time tonight, and it is that when I heard it for the first time, it just has that impact on you. It's a beautiful love story, and Neil says bittersweet, you know. And we thought about that and thought, you know, it's great to write stories about real people and real story and real love, which is, you know, between Neil's grandfather and his grandmother. And we thought, God, this would be a lovely thing to write a song about this and dedicate it to them. Now, we were, the one thing we were very mindful of, and, you know, I said to Neil from the outset, is that, look, the thing is, these are real people, and these are your family, so we're going to get your family's blessing before this song ever gets on an album or does anything, because, you know, we don't want to take away anything from the memories that they have. But Neil having him back to his family, and they were really lovely about it.
Absolutely, yeah. I told my dad about the idea of it, and my Aunt Mary as well. So we recorded the song, and they loved it. They really loved the song, and you know, it's wonderful to be able to. It brings me closer, I suppose, to my grandparents, and it's nice to be able to say this is for you. You know, both of them up there now, you know, looking down. So we're going to play that for you now. This is called The Old Tweed Coat. He had a warmth in his eyes, she had a song in her heart. The most indelible kind, right from the start. Two worlds would collide, hearts would beat like a drum. Only love, only love, only love. He come from miles and miles, over mountains he ride. No journey too long now they're apart. But the words in that coat next to his heart, they spoke of his love which still remained. For that old tweed coat contained only love, only love, and only love, only
Thank you. Thanks so much.